Like moths to a flame, you've thrown caution to the wind for a glimpse into our world. Well, now you're in it.
Welcome to Effed Up Stories.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Effed Up Stories. I am your host, Will Pender.
And I am your co-host, Ryan Sharp.
And we are very, very glad to be back. Let me just, we have to go through a couple things, stuff that we need to shout out to everybody. And if, we're going to be doing an amazing episode tonight. There's a story that was sent in from a guy named Kevin, and it has to do with a deal with the devil. We're going to call it that. He was given extreme things that most people never get because of something that he perhaps wished or kind of said out loud. And then when he realized what was going on and he tried to get out of it, his life took a 180 turn down a very, very dark road. Very, very interesting story. But before we come into that, the main thing that I want to address for all of our listeners, as you may have known already, especially if you were a regular listener, about a month ago, we asked for donations for a new audio interface. And you can probably hear right now that it's much better audio quality than we had in the previous two episodes. And that's because the donations were successful. I can't tell you guys how thankful and appreciative I am for your generous donations. Like when Ryan and I first discussed this, we were stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, we needed to get one to do the show, and we didn't have any money left. I just went and dumped a whole bunch of money on a new computer for Effed Up Stories, and I was broke, Ryan was broke, and at the most we thought we might get $50, and that would have helped. We never in a million years would have thought that we would reach our goal, and we did. So we had a goal of $700 US towards an Apollo Twin Solo audio interface, and by the time that I noticed that we actually reached our goal, we had, I believe it was 735 something. So we exceeded our goal before I was even able to take it off the website, and I ordered the audio interface on, I believe it was December 22nd. As soon as the money went from PayPal to my bank account, and I received the audio interface just a couple days ago. So, by the way, if you hear any audio anomalies, it's just because I'm still learning the interface. I'm still, I haven't had a time to really adjust to it, but the little bit of time that I got to play with it and get an understanding of how it works, it sounds amazing. So once again, guys, like you totally blew us away, and I can't say again how appreciative I am that you did this for us. And as a token of our thanks, something that I spent the last couple of weeks doing is putting together these thank you packages, and I sent the links out for those yesterday. I finally got them completed, And I need to clarify this because one of our donators had responded to my email today and said that she didn't get the Dropbox links. Because what it is to do this quickly, I sign up for a membership on Dropbox where I could send these links with a password to download these packages. And so if you donated and you didn't get an email from Dropbox saying it was from me, it's gonna come from Dropbox, and it's going to say, here's a link to download a file, and you're also going to get an email from me saying what the password is to download that file. So you need both of those. If for some reason you donated and you didn't get one of those links, please contact me ASAP, will@effedupstories.com, so that I can get the link to you, get you the thank you package, because I really want to give you guys something back. And I'm just going to run through the 2 tiers that I've done up for you guys. Anyone who donated anything at all, you get at least a tier 1 thank you package. And what that includes is every episode we've ever done in MP3 format. I believe there's like 80 some odd episodes. So it's a ton of content, and also a ton of wallpapers. That's Effed Up Stories artwork. Tier 2, which would have been $10 and above, anyone who donated that amount of money got the Tier 2 package, and that includes everything from Tier 1, but also in addition, you get a video of the initial, the video of the podcast intro. You get a ringtone. You get the biggest thing that you... Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm going to save that for last. You also get a little track that is a project that Ryan and I worked on. It's a quirky little track. It's not music. It's kind of a skit, I guess. But it's something Ryan and I put together long before Effed Up Stories ever was a thing. It's a quirky, fun little track that it's just fun to listen to, and if you're fans of ours, you might get a kick out of it. And the biggest thing is I wrote an ebook specifically for you guys. It took a lot longer than I anticipated, but it essentially gives you some background information on Ryan and I, how Effed Up Stories came to be, the ups and downs of Effed Up Stories, inside the studio, it gives you the details of what's in the studio, an inside look, the pictures of the studio, the makings, what goes into making a podcast, how it gets produced, and then a whole ton of fun facts related to Effed Up Stories, like interesting things that have happened related to an episode, or things, just fun things that, is related to Effed Up Stories that not many people know about. So it's just a behind the scenes look at everything Effed Up Stories, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I certainly put the time in there. And of course, the top 3 donators, I've reached out to all of you. I've only heard back from 2, but the top 3 donators are going to get a custom podcast, which is to say they pick the topic of their choice, their dream topic, and we're going to do our best job that we can on that topic. And of course, they get to say an individual message in the show. They can dedicate it to anybody. And so we've heard back from 2 of you, and we are working on your podcast. We're hoping to get them out in the next couple weeks. The biggest donor, ironically, I've emailed twice, a week apart, and I haven't heard from you. If you're listening, you know who you are. You donated a staggering $220. If we really want to do something nice for you, if you could, I don't know, maybe my email went to your spam folder, whatever the case. Unless you're purposely not wanting to, you don't want anything for it, but we would like to give it to you. So if you would like it and you never got my email for some reason, please email me at will@effedupstories.com, and we'd love to do a custom podcast for you and possibly something else. So please get in touch. And the last thing I wanted to shout out before we start the podcast is I thought it might be fun. I had the audio interface, and I ordered the Thunderbolt cable and stuff like that was required. And before I opened it, I thought like maybe I'll just take some pictures of this stuff and I'll put it online so that everybody could see what they bought. But I thought, my DSLR camera has a video mode on it, and I thought maybe people would like to see it open, like kind of be there in the room while I open the stuff that they bought for us. So that's what I did, and I'm gonna splice that in here. It's just an unboxing of the audio interface that you guys bought for us. So here it is. I hope you enjoy that, and then we'll get to the podcast. Hello guys, this is Will Penner with Effed Up Stories. As you know, we had set up donations a little while ago so that we could get a new audio interface because the current one wasn't working. And you all donated for a month. We were successful. We were able to order our new audio interface. I just picked it up today. And I thought that you guys would actually enjoy watching me open what you bought us. So, and once again, thank you so much. Ryan and I are super pumped to do new episodes. But that said, I want to show you what you bought for us and what we'll be using to record the podcast here on out. So this isn't open yet. I have to break all the seals. Where is the seal on this? Here we go. So this is the Universal Audio Apollo Twin Solo. It's, by all accounts of everything I've read and heard, seems to be a fantastic desktop audio interface that is compatible with my iMac. I'll turn that back around. So there is the audio interface. Assume there might be plastic on the top there, and hopefully you can see this. There's the buttons, your knob, and all the inputs on the back. I mean, there's not real. We don't need a whole lot of inputs. What I was looking for was quality over a ton of channels. We only really need 2 anyway. So that is the interface. I'm gonna lay that over here. And what else do we have here? I think that's a quick guide on where to get the drivers. And what is this? Probably the adapter. Yes, the adapter and various plugs. Okay, so that is the audio interface. It connects via Thunderbolt cables, and it doesn't come with one, so I went ahead and ordered this ahead of time. Actually, when I ordered the actual audio interface. Not that this is going to be real great to look at, but yeah, Thunderbolt cable. And I ordered this from B&H Photo. Yeah, B&H Photo. And this was a free, it came free with the audio interface. We initially tried to order it from sweetwater.com, but they said they didn't deliver this product to this country, so, in Canada by the way. So I went ahead and I really wanted this interface. I did a lot of research. I felt this served what we did best. So I found it at B&H Photo, and this is what they gave. All the other places were giving free plugins, which would have been great, but at B&H Photo they were giving away free headphones, and they look decent enough. It might not be as good as the one I currently use, but it was free. I'm not complaining. So yeah, in short, that is what you bought, and again, the audio interface. And so I will be hooking this up, getting it all ready tonight, and hopefully this weekend coming. This is January 6th right now, 2016. So by this weekend, Ryan and I will be recording our new podcasts, and I will also be doing, I've been working really hard on the donation packages for you guys who donated, and I'm hoping to send them out tonight. Hopefully you'll have them by the time you see this video. So once again guys, thank you very much for your generous donations and helping Effed Up Stories get back on its feet. Okay guys, so that is the audio interface that you bought for us, and once again, I can't say thanks enough. Ryan and I are super pumped to get a whole bunch of new episodes out for you guys. And, we've been given a bunch of interesting stories, and we're going to start with one of those tonight. And this one is called Devil's Riches. I actually spoke to the man who sent this in. His name is Kevin Christensen. And I originally spoke to him actually through a comment on YouTube. And he gave me the summary of what had happened to him. And it really kind of tickled me in that way where, when you hear something that's really up your alley, it's really interesting to you. And I asked him if he could send me the full story. And I've recently got it. And, it's better than I thought it was going to be. So basically what it is, and you've heard us talk about this on our episode of demonic possession, and it kind of alludes into the idea of certain artists who have allegedly sold their soul to the devil to get where they are. Well, Kevin's story is very strongly linked to that concept. If it's on the original website, by the way, if you want to catch it, the name is Devil's Riches, effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. But now I'm going to read it to you, and then we will converse. So, as his story goes, one day, as he walked by some albums at a store, he noticed a cover. And on this cover, it had the words, "We sold our soul for rock and roll." And that night, he said he was listening to the band The Doors, and he was drinking at home. He was alone, and he muttered something to the devil. He can't remember exactly what he said, but it's believed that it's along the lines of, I'll give you something. I'll give you my soul for something. And his story is essentially what he phrases it as, I'm about to prove to you that the devil heard me. So a week after this had taken place, he was auditioning for a new band. And, this particular band actually had a manager and, they had the professional sound equipment. And he was hired after doing a few songs. And within a month, they got this gig at this sports club. And they did a single set. And this bar was about 100 feet from what Kevin classifies as a real nightclub. And he said a few days later, he was at this real nightclub where he was trying to study this band. He was trying to get an idea of what they were all about. And he said the sexy little blonde came up and sat next to him. As she came, of course, she bought him a beer and a shot, before he even noticed that she was there. And he said that night, he went back to her place. And as they were laying there on the sofa bed, out in the pool room, she went and picked up this photo album that was filled with pictures of her backstage with members of different bands. And he has in brackets that he's not going to say who they are, but suffice to say that anyone who owned a radio in the 80s, they would know these bands. So I would assume that they were prominent, successful big bands. And he said that she really was, it stands to reason, I guess to reinforce the idea that she was really rich and she was really hot, right? And she, these are the caliber of people that she hung around with. And for some reason, he went out to this town close to Palm Springs, California, a week or two after meeting her, and he got a job and a place to stay. And days later, he went to this music store in town, and he was looking for, he was looking on this billboard, and he saw this ad. There was because in his head he was thinking he wanted to do. He was basically looking for a band that he could be the lead vocalist for. That was what he wanted to do. And while he was looking at this bulletin board in a guitar store, he saw exactly this kind of ad. It was a band looking for a lead vocalist. Exactly what he was thinking before he got there. So that evening, he said, the lead guitarist of said band came out to his place, picked him up in this brand new Corvette. He said they went out to this guy's father's professional recording studio, and he was given the lyrics for this song. I guess it was an audition, and this particular song had just won this band a 1-record deal with EMI. And if you don't know who EMI is, they're a major record label. And anyway, they had won this 1-record deal with EMI for winning a Battle of the Bands competition at the LA Coliseum. And Kevin did so well that the lead guitarist exclaimed, and this is quoted, "Dude, you're better than he ever was." And he was referring to the recently deceased lead vocalist who died from an overdose, which, kind of goes with the territory with this stuff. So anyway, like he rocked him out of the park with this stuff. And anyway, that was it sealed the deal for him. So again, for some reason, he gets in with these guys, and he said he decides to go to Vegas a week later. And while he's at this casino bar and he's talking to somebody, this guy mentions to him this place called the Chicken Ranch. And so, he apparently it was something to do with music, and Kevin decided he needed to check this out. So the next day, he just went out there and figured he'd just say he was looking for a job doing maintenance work or something like that. And he said when he went there, they buzzed him in, and they told the madam that, or he told the madam that he was looking for maintenance work. And as he was telling her this, he was looking at all the decor and women, and, much to his surprise, the new owner of this building happened to be there. And in short, within minutes, he was given the keys to a new house only a mile away, which was completely furnished, a house that nobody has ever lived in. And he was also given the keys to a van. And by the time he got back, with a few cases of beer, the owner had this list of things that he wanted Kevin to have taken care of by these other contractors, and Kevin was to supervise this. So, Kevin's stunned. I mean, you kind of got to look at what's happened here so far. Actually, we'll do that after. There's more. So anyway, he's stunned. And he went along with this idea with the owner for a few days, but one afternoon, he's talking to the owner, and he brings up the EMI contract that he has and everything that had happened up to this point. And he was blown away because he just happened to be, and I should say Kevin was blown away. This owner guy just happened to be friends with some of the top people in the music industry. And he basically told Kevin to blow it off and come with him up to Marin, and he'd introduce him to all the right people. And, so he said, like, with these musicians, they want to promote, they promote these guys. So, like, he went and, again, like, he has this new furnished house. He has this new car. And, he described this job as a do very little job. He had all the backing anyone could ever hope for, and, he hasn't even done a thing yet. He's played one little gig. He showed up to an audition. He hasn't done anything yet. He has this brand new house. He has, these hot women hitting on him. He has a brand new car. He's getting these gigs, these important people. He's moving up the chain, and he hasn't even done anything yet. So he's blown away. He doesn't really understand where this is coming from yet. But however, one afternoon, he was out on the patio of this club owned by a rock superstar, and while looking at Alcatraz Island, he said he had this intense inner fear of being locked away on an island prison. And this was more than just, you get a bad feeling. This is something that really tore at him. Like, it really, really stuck with him, actually. I mean, he mentioned this later, but this was more than just a little feeling. And he said when this happened, he got up and he went home, and as he rolled up a joint and turned on MTV, the first image on the screen was of the Scorpions video they filmed inside, of course, Alcatraz prison. And the words that he'd spoken to the devil maybe 6 months earlier, remember now in the beginning of the story, he said he muttered something to the devil, and he made the connection, and he totally 100% believed that somehow that had to do with everything that was happening to him. Somehow he really made some kind of a deal. And, he was really shook by this, and he, that's not what he wanted. He didn't want a deal with the devil. Like, once he put this together, he wanted out. But he said he didn't know how. He didn't know what to do. So he said a few days later, he sold everything that he had, and he started thumbing his way around. He said he could hardly fold his wallet. It was so stuffed with hundreds. But as time went by, he could sit down more comfortably. He said he did not want to sell his soul for wealth and fame, so he had to work like the rest of us. And while thumbing, he had met someone that told him about high-paying jobs in Alaska. So that's where he went off to. And while he was out in Alaska, he called one of his friends in Marin, and this friend informed him that a woman from Texas had wrote this guy saying that she was pregnant. Apparently, saying it was Kevin. So, he told this guy that he'd be back in Marin in a few weeks. And on his way back, he stopped in Laconia, WA. What's that stand for, Ryan?
WA. I'm not sure. Washington.
Yeah, Washington. Okay, well, I'm not real up on the states. I'm in Canada. Don't get mad at me. Anyway, so that's where he went. He went to, pick up a pound or two of shrooms. And, while he did that, he said there was a Native American art center, and they let him, leave his backpack in their place while he went out harvesting. And despite this, by the time that he got back to the, this art center, they had closed, and of course his backpack was inside. So he said the first night there was a pastor of a church close by that invited him in to stay at the, it actually invited him in to stay at his house with his family. And, he was very appreciative, it was very kind of him. And though he was very respectful, any religious things that the guy had to say just bounced off him, like it does for most of us. I mean, we're all kind of in our own way. We'll listen, but we're not necessarily looking to convert. So that's the way that he felt about it. And in any case, he said to himself and to me, I guess, that the way he thinks of it, he's okay spiritually as long as he never harms people or stole. Those kinds of things. Not that you have to have some kind of faith or anything. So anyway, the next night he tried to go to a homeless shelter. I mean, this is already 180 from where he was to, right? But anyway, when he got there, it was 5 minutes too late. And apparently that's what the guy told him at the door. It's 5 minutes too late. And then Kevin said fate kicked in. And as he walked down a road parallel to 1 to 5, this guy drove past. And then he backed up and he said, "What the hell are you doing out here?" in this very curious way. And Kevin told him about the shelter and all these. He had nowhere to stay, and the guy in the car tells him to get in. And as they drove down the road, he could tell that this guy was drunk. And, nevertheless, he had nowhere to go. And the guy said, he could stay in a sofa bed tonight. And, when he looked at the drizzle turning to rain, he thought, why not? I have a place to stay for tonight. And later that night, the guy told him that, he was going to be leaving for work at 5 a.m. But he could stay there until he got back. And shortly after, I'd say, he said around noontime, the guy comes home, and his landlord came by, and the landlord was freaking out because this guy had been drinking in the house, and apparently this was something against their agreement. And so they had this big argument, and, Kevin kind of hides the beer that he had, or whatever. And anyway, Kevin said, he put the beer off to the side so the guy couldn't see it. He said he never had any beer that day, but he knows that the guy who let him stay there, his plan was to get him drunk. And he said that evening, the guy, insisted, kind of pestered him, I guess, to go out drinking with him. And, when they went out to drink, the guy was asking him what music he liked and all these different questions. And so, anyway, they end up going out to this bar, and they're having a good time. There's apparently a good band on stage, and this guy to let him stay there called one of his friends, and his friends, he just assumes that he's calling one of his friends to come check this guy out or whatever, right? So this guy shows up, and his name is Klaus. He never does say the name of the guy that I don't think he says the name of the guy he's staying with, but anyway, his friend's name is Klaus, and he shows up and says, okay, forget what I just said. He says his name right now. So the guy shows up, the friend is Klaus. The guy's house that he's staying at, his name's Henry. And when Klaus shows up at the bar, he says, Henry, I see you have a new friend. And they both kind of have this joke or laugh, like it was a inside joke. And then Henry, the guy that he's staying with, he makes this sarcastic remark about women and asked Kevin if he could take a walk while him and Klaus has this talk. And when he gets back, Klaus is gone, and there was this huge beer sitting on the bar for him, and he drank it, and of course there was something in it. He didn't, he said there had to have been something in it because he barely made it to the taxi when he called it. And he said it sounds odd, but he was glad he took some of the shrooms he picked because he thinks that whatever was in the shrooms must have counteracted with whatever they put in the beer. And as soon as he got to Henry's house, he went to the bathroom. Or I should say, when Kevin got there, Henry went to the bathroom. And then Henry came out, and he had nothing on, right? I mean, this is not what Kevin was looking for. So anyway, this guy comes out, he's naked, and he asks Kevin how he felt. And he told him, not too good. I'm going to go to the 7-Eleven to get something to eat. And then Henry says to him, you're not going anywhere. And Kevin freezes for a second, and he tries to calm him down, like, I'll only be a minute. And then he said the oddest words came out of his mouth. He said, you're nothing but a damn manipulator. And his last words were, you want to fight? You want to get tough? You want to get buck naked and rough? No. Anyway, that's, this is where it escalated. And he said he came at him, his fist clenched. And when he pulled back for this knockout punch, he said, he's defending himself, right? So Kevin does this lightning fast blow to his face, knocks him out cold, and he hit the floor like a sack of rocks. And as he stood there, and he looked at, looking at his jacket, looking at his gloves on the chair next to him, he said, it's as if this guy on the floor, Henry, it's as if he could see through his eyelids and plead with something, not Kevin, something in the room. And it was like he was saying no in the creepiest way. Kind of like something bad was going to happen and you're saying no, like you don't want it to happen. And then he began gagging, and seconds later, he stopped breathing. So at this point in time, Kevin had not put together that Henry and Klaus, they were planning to kill him at the bar that night. I mean, whatever they put in the beer, they were either going to drug him and fuck him, or they were going to kill him, or probably both. So, he hadn't put this together quite yet. And, he was panicking, so he actually tried to save this guy. He gave him CPR, but it didn't work. So, sometime during this process, while he was doing this, trying to save this guy, he said he sensed something very demonic. And he went haywire. Like he really felt something sinister there. So, he said he felt fear as if something still threatened him. This guy is dead, but he has that urgent panic and fear. And those of you who have had those fear, these fears, and you don't know where they're coming from, you kind of trust those as your intuition, right? And usually it's to get out. It's not something that you hear necessarily. You just feel it, and that's what he was getting. But he didn't understand there was nobody there. The threat, this guy, was dead. And so anyway, he was so freaked out that he bound this guy up with every cord he could find in the house, and he threw all the clothes on top of him, to cover whatever it was up. Because remember now, he felt like he sensed something demonic. There was something sinister in the room. and he felt like it came from this Henry guy. And he said, it's obvious that he had no intention of committing any crime. As he had spoken to the landlord that day, telling him his name. They had made plans to, that he was going to go and work on the landlord's cars the next day. It wasn't hard to find him, but despite all of this, I guess there is, obviously the guy is dead and there's clothes on him. He's bound up with cords, and of course he flees the scene. I mean, he's panicking. He doesn't really know what to do. He's thrown into this situation not by choice, and in any case, so he wants to get the hell out of there. He didn't call the police. And I can kind of understand that. You got to understand that it's, a spur of the moment thing. You're just thrown into it. And he said, how could he explain this fear to the police of something that he can't even see? Right? How would they believe that anyway? But he said, this was real, all right. This was nothing that he was imagining. He said he was so naive. He said earlier that day, this guy had the neighbor's kid. This guy who's dead on the floor. That's who I'm referring to here. This guy had the neighbor's kid wash his beater truck. And when the boy's sisters came over and told him that their mom wanted him to come home, it's time for dinner, this guy went batshit crazy, scared the shit out of the little girls, yelling at them. And they ran away in tears. And then he made the boy take a shower while he stood in the bathroom with him. I mean, that's your first warning flag right there. But, he wasn't really paying attention to any of this. This guy is letting me stay at his house. That is the frame of mind he was at the time. So now he's going over all this stuff, and he realizes he was really naive. There was these flags there, and he didn't put it together. And he said at that point in his life, he had never even heard of a child molester. The thought never occurred to him. And he say that because now he knows that this Henry guy, he said he knows there are demons. And this guy, Henry, he was possessed. And he said that demon wanted to scare children and hurt them emotionally. And so with that, Kevin went back to Marin. And when he got to his house, of course, the door was locked. So he went up this hill, and he leaned back on this huge boulder the size of a dump truck, and he noticed these sheep grazing on the hills around him. And he had this thought of how he wishes that life could be that simple. Stupid sheep. Damn sheep. And, they're lucky. Why can't I be so carefree like that? And in any case, when a mailman came, and he noticed this guy, I guess, hanging around the house that wasn't his. He called the police, and the police show up, and he's arrested. Kevin's arrested now. And, of course, when they look into it, now it's not he's arrested for loitering or whatever. He's arrested for murder. So Kevin finds himself in this horseshoe-shaped cell area. And right in the center, Kevin does 10 years, but this is his prison experience now. So he's in this cell, it's a horseshoe-shaped cell area, and right in the center there was a wall in front of a cell, and on the other side of this wall was a 6-man cell. And after a week or so, all he could do, he had this cart that had all these books, and he was just reading all these different books, and he finally took a look at the Gospels and letters in the Bible. And though he said, God knows I did not kill that man on purpose, I still felt awful about what had happened. And he thought about why he had bound that guy up. And at some point, he understood the message about needing to believe, to be born again. And he got on his knees and he prayed humbly. And he said there is no other way to describe the peace that he sensed. The peace that filled his heart. He said, I somehow knew I had been heard. And what's more is that some weight or something was lifted from him. And what was lifted from him is going to be kind of surprising. Because what was lifted from him was the demon that really killed that man, Henry. He said this demon after, this had happened, he said it hitched a ride on his shoulders. But when he called on Jesus, it had to leave immediately, and he knew where it went. He said there was a guy annoying this Arab guy in the 6-man cell right, past the wall. And he said this guy was irritating this Arab guy, yelling down the hall all day. And at some point, the Arab guy snapped, and he began strangling the guy. And he said he would have killed him if these 2 big black guys had not pulled him off. And, he said it was a struggle. It took these guys some time. And it's like this Arab had superhuman strength. And where do we see that? Demonic possession. We hear it all the time. The people who are possessed, they have this superhuman strength. And when this demon left Kevin, he believes it went into the Arab. And that's where the Arab got that strength. And so that's the weight that was lifted from Kevin, and now it's gone to this Arab guy. And he said that evening, he was taken out to the shower room, and this was adjacent to the 6-man cell. And while he waited for them, to put him back in his cell, he said the Arab guy walked over, grabbed the bars, and he just glared at him with this "you know who I am" look. And he said his face was contorted and fierce looking, his eyes were glassy, and he said the man they convicted him of killing had a bone broken in his neck from compression. And when his attorney asked the coroner how, that could happen without leaving any external signs of manual strangulation, he actually scratched his head and he said, "I do not know. But Kevin knows." He said it was this demon that did that. And he said he served his 10-year sentence on this island. And of course, when he looked in this guy's eyes, remember when Kevin attacked him? That look that was in his face, the way that it happened, that look was the same face that he saw in the Arab. And when that presence left him, left Kevin, because remember, after he killed that guy, hitched a ride on his shoulders, and they went to prison. And finally, when he called to God, it leaves his presence, goes in this Arab guy. And so, and he recognized it when he saw it, when he looked into his eyes. So anyway, Kevin does his 10 years, and, he's finally getting off the island. And he said on the boat ride out there, he recalled the day that he was so shaken inside while looking at Alcatraz. If you can remember, he was in this rock stars bar, and he was looking at this island with Alcatraz, and he got this really sinister, specific feeling. It was more than just a simple feeling.
Obviously, a premonition.
It was a premonition. It was an omen, right? And he somehow intuitively picked up that connection. I guess he knew what was going to happen, or maybe it was a threat or a foreshadowing, forewarning. Whatever the case is, that's where he ended up. And as he left, he recalled that, as he left, and he said he knew it was God who spoke to him that day. He said the devil tried to kill him for not serving his interests, but he knows that God saved him by an angel that touched the nerve in his arm that hit that Henry guy. Because he said if it was a conscious move on his part, he knows he would have used his right arm. He's right-handed, but it was his left hand that he hit him with. Everything about it was kind of strange to him. And he said, if you think your mind is blown yet, we're not even to the astonishing part. But before we read more into the story, I just want to make a couple connections. Kevin wants to be in a band, right? Any one of you who've done music, played an instrument, wanted to get somewhere, it's one of the hardest industries in the world to get into. And he just shows up, and he's
red carpet's already rolled out when he gets there.
Yeah, he shows up and it's like, bang, okay, well, you're in this. And then it's like, okay, well, now I want to be a lead singer for a band. Bang. And now all of a sudden you're in a band, that's got a contract with EMI, a major record label, right? And then it's, that's not even enough. He goes and he wants to move somewhere else, and the guy's like, oh, well, screw that contract. I know everybody in the business. Let's just go up there. I mean, he hasn't done anything yet. He got this new house. He has a new job. He's got, all the backing anybody could ever want in the music industry. The world's his oyster. He got money, he got cars, he got women, he got everything. And then all of a sudden, he figures it out. He figures out the thing that he muttered before this started. This little, I guess, wish to the devil. And now all of a sudden, just like that, life's gone. He's like, okay, I don't want any part of this. I'm going to sell all this stuff the devil gave me. I want out. And then everything that happens is bad luck. You show up at a homeless shelter, you're too late. Fuck off. 5 minutes late, right? He manages to get picked up by somebody, and what are they going to do? Well, they're going to drug him and rape him or kill him. And then, in self-defense, he ends up killing the guy and going to prison for 10 years, right? So, complete 180 from top of the world to the bottom. So that's what's happened here so far, but of course there's more. And he said, okay, you remember that guy Claus that he met at the bar, right? Well, he said while he was in prison, he said this Claus guy later showed up, and he was in the hospital ward on the island. And at this point in time, Kevin had just been mysteriously given this job as a night porter. And in any case, just prior to this, Kevin actually had this dream one night, and in it, he saw this pretty black woman who was motioning for him to follow her, and she did this twice. And when he woke up that day, it was very vivid. For some reason, he remembered that dream, and it was very strange to him until the following night when he went to this new job. And he said that, when he went in there, the guard brought him up to the second floor ward, and he said normally the guard would lock him in there for an hour or so he could clean. But he said on that particular night, when he looked in through the bars, he got this shot of adrenaline. His heart begins to flutter. He saw Claus sitting there in a chair. So Claus is in there now. And when he saw him, Claus jumped out of the chair. He ran to the door and he begged the guard to not let this guy in there because he knows what's going to happen, right? And the guard looks at Kevin and gives him a smile. And, when Kevin asks the guard if he could go in, he did. He let him in. So Claus went back to his chair. Kevin goes in and he sits next to him. And he's wondering what to say. But first, he said his attention was taken. He noticed that Claus had on a pair of shoes that had an odd name. And he said he had to take a good look because the one and only thing he can remember about the crime scene photos from when, he killed that guy in defense, there were these shoe prints made in blood. And he said he knows they were not made by his shoes that he had on that night. But when he looked at this guy's shoes, Claus's shoes, he said he was astonished beyond measure because when he looked at them, he knew that he was wearing the same shoes that left those prints. He said they were orthopedic tennis shoes that had a very unusual design. And he said that for him settled it for him. He knew for certain at that point that Claus and Henry had planned to murder him because he most certainly was there that night and he saw what he had done to his partner, Henry. He killed him. And he said that very fact scared him. And Kevin thought that this was kind of funny. A cold-blooded murderer scared witless. And he said, he wasn't going to kill his only witness, but, Claus didn't know that. He liked the idea that he was scared in his presence. And of course, Claus denied knowing him or his partner, but, so he denied even knowing Henry. But he said the next night, he went in there while Claus was sleeping and he watched a 60-minute show about 911 calls. And he said this one call they played had a woman in distress screaming. And so Claus is asleep while this is happening. And he said Claus' reaction was to begin kicking his legs frantically and gagging like he was being choked. And again, Kevin said that's when he knew these guys had murdered that woman that he dreamt of earlier. So this black woman, basically remember the dream he had with the black woman who motioned him? And again, he had this intuitive feeling. He's watching the show, and this woman starts screaming. He starts kicking his feet and making these gagging sounds. So it triggered something in him, I guess a memory while he's dreaming. And that to Kevin is like he knew that, he somehow knew that this guy was responsible. And he thought, God knows how many other people these guys probably killed. And he said he knows there are demonic conspiracies. He said, how else, the detectives that checked in on Kevin's case, right? So, okay, this guy is dead. He's bound. He's got cords on him. He's got laundry on him. But, when he was on the stand and when he was being questioned, they pretend that they don't know what Kevin's talking about. They don't understand, but they couldn't match his shoes to the crime scene. But that didn't matter. I mean, obviously someone else was involved, and still Kevin is the only one that is already, to me, that's reasonable doubt. Someone else is involved. Apparently,
couldn't explain the cause of death. Couldn't explain the footprints.
Exactly. They couldn't really explain anything. And in Kevin's words is that they never checked anything. They didn't want to. It was like they wanted to grab him for whatever reason. I guess it's the only thing they could latch on to. But I think the point Kevin was trying to make is that, just like how everything else went to shit for him right away, it was a message. It was like, you're not going to do my bidding. Well, have this, have this happen, have this happen. Everything just went to shit. It was just a big downward spiral. And in any case, Kevin said he calls pretty much every year to the police to try and find a detective who will actually look into this, case of the murdered woman. It's a non-solved case. And, he's interested, I guess, to see if he can actually make that connection. But he said every time that he calls, they're always too busy. So as he put it, the family of this woman is never going to find out what actually happened to her, who actually murdered her. And, it ticks him off because he feels like he knows. And he said in his case, if they could find out and it was connected, it could probably exonerate him. Maybe he would even be thanked or apologized to or something. But, things just don't work that way for him. And he said, if this would happen, he would have, or he does have, I should say, he has some satisfaction knowing that, remember that when Henry took that boy, and obviously he must have been molesting him. He's, if nothing else out of this whole thing, he's glad to know that at least with Henry out of the world, he can't molest that boy or anyone else anymore. And perhaps there are other people who will continue to live who might have been murdered by these guys had not all this stuff happened. And, he's very persistent. This is one thing that he emphasizes several times throughout his stories, that he knows these guys were going to murder him. And he said, while he was in prison, he said, despite all of this, he said God gave him a wonderful future and hope. And he wrote everything down that happened, but he knew that there would be trouble after he was given the things that he needed to get faith, right? So I guess God gave him information in prison. He wrote it down, but he knew that there was going to be trouble when he came out. I guess he was going to have trials to go through. And he said this started when a couple came to the island from Denver to minister. And he said at the end of the service, there was a woman named Rama who came over to him and began telling him that God had been confirming his plan for him. And then she began to weep and then sob, and there was just tears streaming down her face. And Kevin didn't know what to think, but during the next week, another new visitor came to preach, and he did the same thing. Except instead of tears for this guy, he just had this very intense look in his eyes. But he said the look in his eyes said the same thing as the woman from the week before. So, he had these two ministers come up and basically say the same thing to him, which is strange. And he said, I guess what they said to him is that God will give 2 or 3 witnesses to establish a matter, and that's what he got. He said he hardly knows how to go on. He said the devil will try and hinder God's will, but in his case, the trouble Rama spoke about got him very upset. And he gave place to the devil by being angry with some people for meddling. He said it's cost him everything. But one day, years ago, he said he drove by Clear Lake, and he saw himself getting chewed up by the anger, and he asked God to forgive him and to please help him overcome this anger. And that night, he said he had the worst feeling of emptiness, sorrow, and dread that he's ever experienced come over him. And it ended after a few minutes, but then a few nights later, as he sat in his RV, he heard this growl coming from the bottom of the door. And when he looked outside, there was nothing there. But the next night he heard the same growl, but it was louder, and he said it was unmistakable. And he actually thought, I hope whatever that is, it does not know how to open doors. And again, he looked and he saw nothing outside. But he knew, again, this is intuition for him. He knew it was the demon that had troubled him and provoked the anger. Like this whole experience, he's drawing this very specific connection to this specific demon right from the beginning. And Kevin said he does have a testimony of how God saved him and used him to stop this murderer. And the devil don't want him to have any doors open to give glory to God, much less expose how much he is involved in the music industry. He said the company his Marin friend and his partner owned was called 1776 Financial Corp, and it's recently discovered that, Kevin just recently discovered that that's the year the Illuminati began. Now, I haven't actually tried to cross-check any of this stuff, but I guess you guys in the comment sections will do it for me. And in any case, he said that the symbol that people are seeing in most of today's music, you know what the thing is, the pyramid and the eye. Everybody knows. For a secret society, they're very well known. But anyway, he said that the people who get involved with that, he said they need our prayers. He said that the devil threatens them with death, and they somehow know that the devil isn't bluffing. They have one hope to save their eternal soul, and that is Jesus Christ. And the devil submits to that name spoken in faith, and none other. So that's Kevin's story, and Ryan, I want to hear your thoughts first so I can drink some of this Captain Morgan that's getting warm.
Well, what a wild tale. And it's one that really comes in 2 major layers. So we have the individual story of a man who, internally or mumbles this this agreement with the devil to say, you know what, I'll give you my soul if you only make me famous, make me rich and famous. And sure as hell, that's what seems to have happened. Now, beyond that, though, there seems to be another layer to the story, a bigger story arc, I guess. Where as he's trying to come out of this situation, trying to withdraw himself from this situation, he ends up getting tangled up with these supposed murderers, whom, he eventually kills one himself. So at this point, he believes that, he was sent or directed into this other guy's life, into this pedophile murderer's life, to kind of remove him, to stop him from doing the evil things that he was doing. Now, personally, I always have trouble with the whole God and devil.
I know.
But aside from that, I mean, just taking it at face value, right? Taking the story for what it is and discussing it within the lore that exists. Um, the story does seem to follow a lot of the real cliche kind of, he speaks aloud this supplication to the devil saying, I'll give you my soul if you make me rich and famous. He was through a series of events, just has this red carpet rolled out for him. And at some point he's feeling like, this is crazy. I gotta, he's getting these subtle hints that something's wrong, and he tries to pull out of it. And in the course of doing so, it's like, it's almost like, God says to him, like, well, you know what? I can't give you a get out of jail free card on this one. But if it's almost like an RPG, it's like, if you do this little quest for me and go and vanquish this evildoer, and you'll have to do some time, but it's only 10 years. You could have got 25 years, for murder.
It's that middle point of the story that I have the hardest time trying to figure out how I think it went. Looking at it, like you said, at face value, one thing that definitely does seem to be an accurate portrayal is that his experience with, he mutters this thing to the devil, and he does get, just as you hear about, he gets this extreme case of success, success that most people will never get. And by his own admission, he hadn't really even done anything yet. So that falls into his lap very mysteriously after uttering this thing.
And not just a small, like no small potatoes either. I mean, we're talking women, money, cars, homes.
Well, exactly. We're talking about the material world.
If you're going to sell your soul, that's you want the whole package.
Well, that's what they say. They say that the devil owns the world. The possessional, the material world. That's his place, right? That's why
I kind of feel like I got screwed on my deal then.
All I got was a blowjob from a demon.
Yeah,
it's over now. But
I, just for clarification,
she
I
had
never
teeth in her vagina.
Job from a demon.
What?
I said, just for clarification for everybody, I've never claimed to have gotten a blowjob from a demon.
That's right. That's a secret note in our book. And but to me, I mean, that's the story that you hear, is that the devil owns the world. He owns the possessions and, the things that happen here on earth. And it's like, your job is to, deny, what's it called, temptation, and to not stray from God and stuff like that. And every time we hear these stories, this is how it ends up. It really goes sour really bad. But where I have and it's not that I'm saying I don't, I don't know what I think in this regard, but okay, so he makes this deal, gets what he wants, or seemingly so, doesn't really, put it together, but when he does, he wants it, right? Well, what you'd expect to have happen, I guess, everything goes to shit. It goes really bad. So to me, defending himself and killing, that's what he was put in a bad situation. It was a rock and a hard place. He was either going to get killed or he was going to kill this guy and go to prison. To me, that's not necessarily God doing you a favor. That's the devil hitting you as hard as he can, and now you're going to go to prison for 10 years. Now, we had a similar look, I guess, when we looked at the story with David in the Devil of Bell Island. Or the Bell Island Devil, where, he tried to look into all these terrible things that happened to him and tried to find, he made these connections to God and again, that's where we both kind of fell off making those connections. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard for us to see it in the exact same light.
Well, for me, because I don't believe God exists, so.
Well, I believe in God. I just, when things happen to us, we try to make connections to what makes sense to us. And I'll tell you this. I spoke to a psychiatrist before, and I was tested. I'm not crazy. But anyway, all the things that were wrong with me, all the things that I considered issues, I was told that it all went back, when I told my story, I was told that everything went back to my dad, and I couldn't wrap my head around that at all, because I don't have a relationship with him or think about him, or I couldn't make that connection at all. But again, when she started, making these connections and these patterns and pointing it out, I could kind of see parts of it, but I couldn't make the whole jump. And I think what it is that depending on our perspective and where we're to, we make these certain connections, and that's what makes sense to us. That like in this case it's likely like we would all do. Kevin's trying to find some redeeming quality or that happened, or maybe he's trying to, maybe he feels really bad about what happened, even though it was an accident, and he's trying to find some good in it, some kind of good that came out of this terrible thing that had happened to him. And
there's immediate good. You killed somebody that was planning on killing you.
Right. So
I'd have a tough time feeling bad about that.
Oh, me too.
Especially if the guy was a fucking pedophile.
Yeah, well, they deserve to be killed. But I think like we would all do, you're trying to find, you're trying to make as much good out of this terrible situation as you can. It's like an optimistic look. It's easier to handle. It's easier to live with. It's easier to deal with.
And that's just something we do as people.
We all do it. But, in saying that, it could be that. I mean, they do say that the Lord works in mysterious ways, and sometimes to get a certain perspective, like in Kevin's case, he got a certain perspective from going and doing this. I'm sure he learned different values, what's important. Maybe he needed to go through this experience to build, to get this experience in his lifetime. Maybe that was one of his life goals that God had planned out for him. It's like, you need to know that life is not about possessions. It's not about money. It's not about, and the only way for you to learn that is to give you everything and then to take it away, right? I mean, that could be his life's lesson. So I'm not saying that it isn't God's plan. I'm not saying it was all the devil either. I'm just trying to lay out different scenarios that could or could not be true. I mean, truthfully, Kevin knows better than anyone because it happened to him. And I'm sure as detailed as his story is, just like anybody who tells a story, there's stuff that gets left out. There's stuff, that he can perceive probably that can't articulate in the story. So I guess that's up to you guys to tell us what you think. I think, I told Kevin when he initially told me the story, not only is it amazing, but I think it's a story that needed to be told for anybody, especially who's dealt with the stuff, who maybe is on the fence thinking about selling their soul, or I've never heard a story from anybody, as far as I've looked, that said I sold my soul to the devil or something, and now I'm still happy with the way it worked out. It never goes that way. There's always this big regret. I mean, the best you're going to find is someone saying that I've learned to deal with, I've learned to live with it, and I'm going to deal with whatever pact I made. That's the closest happy ending I've heard there. But, life is not eternal, right? I mean, it don't matter how good you get it here. I mean, you could have it all. Maybe you only have it for 2 years, and then you're dead, right? I mean, I see where I work at a newspaper company, I see tons of obituaries every single day, and a lot of people who are really young die. younger than me, and I don't think I'm very old. So it's freaky how sudden it can happen. I mean, to people you know, people you've seen around.
Well, it's the age-old cautionary tale, I think. Be careful what you wish for,
Oh, hell yeah.
because you just might get it.
Well, it seems to be the case. When it comes to making a deal with the devil, I've actually got a couple stories like that on the website. Now, of course, I'm not going to relay them all now because we'll cover those in different podcasts, but there are quite a few people. I mean, let's face it. Our website's not that big, right? I mean, we're not that big, so for us to get any stories like that, it must be, I'm not going to say common, but there must be more than you'd think out there.
It seems to be common enough.
Yeah, exactly, right? So people are doing that. So that's the question. I mean, if the devil owns the world and he owns, the media, and especially music, music's always brought up, and the devil is supposed to have been like the best fiddle player ever. He's apparently like a genius musician. There was this guy, I can't remember his name now, but apparently he dreamt the devil, or the devil came to him in a dream and played this, was it the Devil's Trill?
The Devil's Trill is the name of the violin piece that's...
Right, and when the guy woke up, he wrote down everything he could remember, and is still regarded as one of the most complicated and amazing pieces ever written on the violin. But he said...
And it's amazing. It's beautiful.
It is. I've listened to the whole thing, and it's a long thing. But he said that it's garbage compared to what he heard in his dream. But
he's not even close.
He could never do it, right? So that just, again, it's a strange thing. I mean, he awoke and was able to play it. So, I mean, if all this is true, and the devil owns the music industry and stuff like that, and maybe you're a musician and you want to do it, I mean, is that part? I mean, I don't know. I've never been in that deep. But is that part of it? That you get so far and it's like, okay, we can give it to you, but you got to sign on this dotted line. It's like, well, what am I signing away? Your soul, right? Is that a thing? And in Kevin's case,
that's a whole other topic for
But
another night.
But if we're going to extend that even further, is that the case for all super successful? Not normal success, like, okay, you're a doctor and you make 100 or 200 grand a year. I mean, that's already really successful. But I mean, the people who make billions of dollars, is that a thing? Do you think that, there's a percentage, or perhaps a lot of them, who had to make a deal somewhere? Maybe they don't even know they did it. Maybe it was very subtle, just like Kevin's. You made this little muttering to yourself. They didn't make that connection that they'd somehow agreed to this deal, and now they're overnight super hugely successful. Is that a thing? Right? How would you spot it? How would you know?
Oh man, well, that's if you go around and actually look, there are a whole plethora of famous people. I don't know about wealthy entrepreneurs who've really made it big, but I know there's a whole pile of famous people, both actors and singers, who've pretty much just straight up admitted that they've made some kind of pact. And I mean, it takes very little searching around on YouTube or Google to find recordings of that. And and it's not just they don't just say the devil. There's a lot of them who claim to channel spirits for their acting. They channel channel spirits into them, and that they kind of take the wheel, and that's how they give these amazing performances. So, I mean, it's out there. We have numerous stories on Effed Up Stories sent to us by regular everyday people who talk about these kinds of experiences all over the internet. And in the lore, going back, there's that blues singer.
I know what you're talking. I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
I know what he looks like.
Yeah, actors, singers, the rich and famous, as I guess you could call them American royalty. There's no real royalty in North America, but the rich and famous actors and singers they kind of fill that gap, and there's so many of them that have just openly admitted to spirits. And I'm pretty sure who is Denzel Washington, Oprah's made strange comments like that.
Well, what's interesting, I mean, you as well as I, like, we're looking for different music on YouTube, like what bands do we not know about that we might like, or we stumble across these things, and you listen to it. Every now and then you'll stumble across something that is amazing to us, and we look and it's like they got no views, nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And you wonder, how the hell is that possible? Or you'll go to a club and you'll see a band that's like amazing and all original stuff, they're doing their own thing and nobody's heard of them. And yet you'll have these people who are fucking huge in music and they don't even play an instrument, and it's all auto-tune. Everybody's writing their music, everybody's producing, like they just grab somebody and it's like, okay, we're going to give you everything. We're going to write your music, we're going to produce it. You won't even have to fucking sing, because we'll just play a recording, right? And you'll just have to show up on the stage and look pretty. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if we're talking about pretty people, there's lots of good-looking people with talent too, and there's lots of them that aren't anywhere successful. Why is that? Because it's not like they don't try. I've met lots of people who are really talented and work harder towards this stuff than you could ever expect anybody to work, and they're nowhere. So why is it there's so many people like that and they just can't catch a break? And then there's these people with no fucking talent, and the world's given.
The industry is just flooded with manufactured artists, right? They call them artists, but they're these manufactured people who, like you said, they don't even have to sing. They don't need to know how. They more or less just got to look good on the screen.
Right, and now let's compare.
Other people can do everything.
Now let's compare that to Kevin. And I'm not saying he's not talented. We don't know any of that. He probably is. But let's just compare, because as he put it, he hardly did anything, and he was given a house. He was given a car. He hardly did anything, and he was given all the stuff that, comes with these big things that usually you got to work for that. He didn't have to work for it. And these artists we're talking about that supposedly sold their soul and stuff like that, again, they didn't work for it. They can't even play the instruments. They can't write it. They can't, everybody's doing it for them. They're just giving it to them. So what do they have to, is this just dumb luck? I won the lottery. This is my version of the lottery, right? They picked me and they gave me all this stuff. Or is it possible that, at least in some cases, that it's they made a deal? They made a deal with the devil and they got it, right? And everybody can't get that deal, because everybody can't be famous, because if everybody's famous, it's not special anymore.
That's right.
So yeah, I guess it comes to certain people. Certain people get that opportunity. Maybe like the devil can sense someone who would be willing to do it. Like maybe not. Maybe you can get a sense of who would be willing to go through with it. Perhaps. Maybe there's people that are teetering on the edges and he knows. And then there's other people that he probably knows he could never get. And you're probably never going to get someone that goes to church all the time, or someone who has a personal relationship with God. But he probably hates those people and tries to manipulate the people he can get to hurt those people. And that I just speculated right out of my ass. I don't know if that's a thing at all.
I figured I'd just let you go on that one, because, again, for me, it's always a difficult topic for me to talk about because I really, like I don't have a horse in the race, I guess is how they say it. It's uh, I'm not religious. I don't really believe in a biblical God deity. I think if anything, there's probably uh, lots of different entities out there with that one could say is a god.
I can already see it right now. There's going to be a couple comments that are like, Ryan, you need to promise Jesus. Like, why do you guys always do this? You're not religious at all. Like, you guys are going to hurt yourself. And I can see it in the comments already because it happens every time. But
and that's fine. That's great. For those of you out there who really believe in something, I think that's fantastic. I just really don't believe in anything.
And if it makes anybody feel any better, I of course do believe in God. I'm good there. But Ryan told me when I talked to him about this very idea that if he's wrong, he'll recant on his deathbed.
Well, I mean, I can't make any claim about what'll happen in the future, especially on my deathbed. But as of right now, I got. It's not a point of recanting. I don't, I don't feel like I'm in the wrong. I'm here and I'm living my life and doing my thing. I'm not out murdering people and. And if down the road when I die I get that day of judgment comes, then great. I'll let them do their thing, and that's all I can do. I'm a man of science. I've experienced paranormal stuff. So
You're
I
a
believe
Scientologist.
I'm not a Scientologist. That's a whole other topic.
This man's a Scientologist. Someone get someone down here right now.
I've experienced paranormal things, and that's why I have I'm not going to say a belief, but I have a strong inkling that the paranormal exists and it's real. I've never experienced a miracle or anything angelic or biblical, so I'm therein I can only believe in what I experience. But gravity's real because I've tripped and fallen to hurt myself.
Well, let me ask you something.
That's proof.
You haven't experienced anything.
That's the only kind of stuff I believe in. When it comes to paranormal, I allow for the existence of everything, but I'll never say unequivocally I believe 100% that this is real, or unless I can really present some evidence. And I think that's for people who who are like me, I think that's where I think it's where they're from or where they're coming from too. It's like, well, no big man has ever come down from the sky and said, here, nice to meet you. I'm God. I'm up here waiting. I'll see you in 60, 70 years.
Let me ask you something just because it came to me. Okay. So, nothing angelic happened to you. You don't. So, right. I mean, that makes sense. You don't believe in it. But do you believe in bad stuff or the devil because you have experience there?
Well, yeah, definitely. I definitely believe that there. I don't you've never heard me refer to. You don't hear me refer to Satan. But I believe there are entities. Good, bad, neutral. I believe that there's a whole cosmology of entities.
Okay, I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Is that there? We don't necessarily have names for them. We don't necessarily believe the specific stories, But you can, you could say, well, I believe there is good and bad. And, I think that's a good point, is that, when you say God and the devil and heaven and hell, it's very black and white. There's good and there's bad. But in this world, even in this little world that we're in, there's so many shades of gray. And not that stupid book. I mean, like, there's so many shades of gray in terms of how many good people there are. And, like, if someone's just not good and that's a one thing, oh, he's good. And that's one thing. There's different levels of good. This guy's really good. He donates to all these charities. Oh, this guy's only a little bit good. He bought that homeless guy a burger, but he goes home and beats his wife. He's probably not even good. It probably just evens out a little bit. And then there's bad. There's the bad guy who, stole your tires off your car. Yeah, that guy's an asshole. But the guy that's going around raping and strangling women, well, he's a bit worse. So there's many shades of good and bad. And when you say God and the devil and heaven and hell, it just seems very linear, especially when compared to the world that we know. Right? And it's for that reason that I have the hardest time just conforming to one idea. Right? So even though I do believe in God and I have this, some faith and I have some belief and whatever, I don't think when I say that, I don't think I have the same kind of belief system as a lot of people do when they say they believe in God, or to me, what I think of as God or religion might be very different from, the mainstream perspective of what they think it is, right? So I don't even know how to articulate what I believe. I really don't. But we're going on a strange note here, and I kind of want to just wrap this up now. So anyway, that's Kevin's story. Lots of food for thought. I'm sure you're going to leave your comments, and we do like to read them and respond to them. And just for Ryan's sake, don't hit him too hard with the, let's save, or do the campaign. Let's the Save Ryan campaign.
Yeah, no petitions, please.
But that said, I'm very happy to say again, thank you to everybody who donated and got our new audio interface so we could get back and do new episodes. We got so much to do. We got tons of stories on the website. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to try to get those custom podcasts out. And again, you guys who donated, check your email and make sure that you got the thank you, the link to the thank you package and stuff. And for some reason you don't have it or can't get it, just email me at will@effedupstories.com, because I really want to give you the guys that stuff. And I'm a little bit paranoid now after one of our donators said she didn't get it. I really want you guys to get it. That's the whole point that I did it for. And of course, if you have an effed up story of your own, please submit it to our website, which is effedupstories.com. That's EFFEDUPSTORIES.com. And I'll get it on the website and eventually into a podcast. Yeah, I think that's the main thing that I don't think I have anything left to say. We're going to be pumping out new episodes, obviously. I can't make a whole lot of promises for this week coming up because I'm working a really long week, but I do hope to get a couple out, and we're going to be hammering them out as we used to. So yeah, you have anything to add, Ryan?
I just want to thank everybody so much for their support and for their donations. We appreciated it so much. And thanks for listening to the podcast tonight. We are back, and we are looking forward to trying to get podcasts out a little more regularly. But we'll see how things go.
Right. So with that said, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and keep tuned for more. Good night. Good night, everybody.